Here tonight, we're just a couple of minutes away from starting the meeting. Before we begin, I'd invite you to stand and join me in the pledge, and then Mark Fugerus will bring the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Heavenly Father, we come to you praising you for all that you do for us and taking care of us as a community. Pray that you help us leadership tonight to be able to be guided by you to do what is best for the city and best for our citizens. Lord, I just pray that you continue to watch over all those that are suffering right now with COVID and heat and everything else, that you take care of them, help guide us and be able to help along with that effort. All these things, thank you.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. I would like to again welcome you to tonight's regular meeting of the Springdale City Council. This is Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. We do have large print agendas available over here, I think, or do we, Wyman? Might have missed those today. Okay, we don't see any. I'll ask our city clerk to call the roll.
Mayor Sprouse.
Here.
Brian Powell.
Here.
Amelia Williams.
Here.
Jeff Watson.
Here.
Mike Overton.
Here.
Mike Lawson.
Here.
Kevin Flores.
Here.
Randall Harriman.
Here.
Mark Fugerus.
Here.
Ernest Kate.
Here. All right, thank you. This is the portion of the meeting the council sets aside. We're at item 4 on the agenda. Sets aside each meeting for citizens to make comments to the council. We ask that you, if you'd like to make comments to the council, please come to the microphone, clearly state your name and address. Please keep your comments very brief and understand that the council won't take action on what you bring forward tonight. Is there anyone that would like to address the council concerning an item that is not already on tonight's agenda? Yes, sir.
My name is Chris Berthal. I live at 1967 Cheyenne Trail. Appreciate you letting me have a moment. I do have a question, and it doesn't pertain to tonight's meeting, but it does have some effect, I believe, or tonight's meeting has some effect on this. I received a notification of another rezoning near Cheyenne Trail for meeting of next week, and it's my understanding when I look at this map, it shows all this area. Tonight, I believe you're voting on a portion that the council meeting is already approved, and it's on this map as a different. And this is the fourth this is the fourth time that property around me has had some sort of a situation. The first one was voted against. The second one was withdrawn. The third one, I believe you approved, and you'll be planning approved.
We
and
approved
you're voting
for
tonight.
Yeah, for a portion of it that'll be on the agenda tonight. Yes.
That's correct. And now here's the fourth time, and I haven't seen any notification publicly on the street. I know this came in the mail on Saturday. I don't know what the rule is about notification, but to say I'm confused and this feels very non-professional would be an understatement on my part. I don't understand, again, why this has gone from we want this portion, then we want this portion, that got removed, we want this portion, but we want to change it, that was withdrawn. Now we want this portion that was approved. Now we're back to wanting the whole portion, a different zone. And I think there's several people who may have that same question tonight.
Let me first say there's nothing unprofessional about it. We have property owners that request these, and they go through the very same process. And our staff, and Patsy can speak to this when she makes her presentation later, but the process we go through is very clear and very it's laid out well. And just because a property owner withdraws or brings something back, that's not our control.
I understand that.
So
it's my understanding that if a property owner or a potential buyer is trying to rezone or ask for rezone and it's rejected, they're not allowed for a certain period of time to come back and ask for that piece of property, the zoning to be changed or an altercation.
I'll defer to the city attorney on that, but there have to be some substantial changes.
Yeah,
correct?
if someone comes and asks for a specific rezoning, they can come back and ask for a different rezoning, which the one that is on the agenda tonight is different from the one that was at the Planning Commission a couple of months ago that was either withdrawn or denied. It's a different rezoning request. That's why it was allowed to come forward.
I understand that, and I think there's probably another person or two who can speak to that a little better than I am, but again, it feels like what we're seeing here, and we voiced concerns over the first, it changed, and now we're right back to where the first is, with the exception of, I believe, maybe MF4. So again, I'm trying real hard not to speak to tonight's agenda, but this is on next week's agenda, and that's a very, very large concern. Still have not seen, heard of anything that addresses what's going to happen to the streets, Cheyenne Trail.
Well, we're getting way off into things that'll have to be addressed when these items are discussed and voted on. Go ahead, Patsy.
Sure. I didn't receive the third one because I'm 320 feet from the property line.
This is for the preliminary plat, this is not for the rezoning.
Okay. So that's not for a rezoning? Okay.
Okay.
All right.
I think that's probably the way I read it, and I see where you're saying that, so that would be my mistake on how I read that. Okay. Well, I appreciate you listening.
Thank you. No problem.
I wish we weren't voting for that, but I know that was last week's meeting or whenever that meeting was. So.
All right. Thank you, sir. Anyone else on an item that's not on tonight's agenda? Again, we'll have an opportunity to speak to those items when the agenda item is before us. Okay? Yes.
My name is Jennifer Graham. I live at 1508 Thistlewood. My comments are actually on the same property. We had a rezoning hearing for in May, and it was struck down because of a lot of the issues that we had voiced. It was an L-shaped property. They then came back and tried to rezone it again, and they couldn't because of the 12-month ordinance. So it seems really sneaky that they cut it in half, and we're voting on this half tonight, and then this half on Monday. And it seems like we're just getting around the we're getting around the ordinance that requires the 12-month waiting period, because they did ask for SF3 in the first item, which is why they could not ask for it again in the second. So then we split it up, and so we rezoned that section last time, which was a section that didn't touch a whole lot of the people that came to the last meeting. And so now you're voting to stamp of approval on half of that property, so we can go back next week and say, well, they already approved this half.
First of all, you don't know how we're voting. Secondly, this is what was forwarded to this council from the Planning Commission. Ernest, do you have anything to add?
I'll just say that, again, that the rezoning request that they brought forward was different than the rezoning request that was denied. In that, I believe the first rezoning request included a large section. I believe it was, the request was rezoned from industrial to MF4. That was completely removed from the request that this council is going to be considering tonight, which is merely rezoning a portion of the property from SF2 to SF3. That's all they're hearing. That is completely different than what was denied. They are allowed to come forward with a different rezoning request, which is what they did. Now, you're mentioning about Monday night. I'm confused about what you mean.
There's another zoning on this same property on the 3rd.
Okay, I think Ms. Christie addressed that basically I can explain that if this rezoning is approved, then at the Planning Commission meeting on Tuesday night, it's not Monday night, it's next Tuesday night.
Oh, sorry, Tuesday night.
Actually, it's Tuesday, August 3rd.
August 3rd.
Next Tuesday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the way it works is once the property is properly rezoned, if this council was to approve the rezoning request tonight, then the developer could then bring forward a preliminary plat for the part that was rezoned and only for the part that was rezoned. That's what would be heard by the Planning Commission on
According
Tuesday night.
to the letter that we received.
Yeah. Now there may be, there is a part of there is a part of the property that they may want to develop that is not subject to being rezoned. It's already zoned SF2. They are free to develop that property via preliminary plat, which may be on the agenda for Tuesday night.
Yeah, the
In
notification
addition to-
that I got said
Yeah.
for preliminary plat and rezoning from SF2 to SF3.
Just to help clarify, what the council is hearing tonight is the rezoning from SF2 to SF3 for a portion of the property. The
Right.
other portion, west of the part that's being requested to be rezoned, the property between that and Cheyenne Trail is already zoned SF2. They don't have to rezone
I
that.
agree, and I think that's great.
Yeah, that could be part of the preliminary plat that's coming forward
Right.
Tuesday night,
I
along
think,
with this rezoning.
I think the biggest concern was that it's just, you're cutting it up into, or someone, whoever is petitioning is cutting it up into pieces to get around the initial denial of it. And none of our concerns with the infrastructure, with the roadways, with the drainage problems, none of those are being addressed. We're just cutting them up into smaller pieces and going around it, is what it appears
So
like.
again, the rezoning requests are submitted by the property owners, not by the city. The city just
Right.
takes action on the request that's submitted by the property owner. And many of the questions that you've addressed as far as drainage and those types of things will be addressed when the preliminary plat is considered at the planning commission.
Okay.
Those
Thank you.
aren't really addressed during zoning anyway. Those are addressed, if the property's rezoned, those are addressed when the plat and the, is discussed.
All
Okay?
right, thank you.
All right. Seeing no others, we will move on to item 5. Scott Edmondson is here from the Springdale Chamber to give us our quarterly economic development report.
Thank you,
Scott?
Mr. Mayor. I passed out a report for each of you, and the second quarter is about as busy as the first one was. We're seeing a lot of activity. We're presently working with 3 companies on possible land purchases from Public Facilities Board properties. So hopefully we'll have more to report on that in the coming weeks. You'll see highlight our new job numbers. 39,827 people were employed in Springdale at the end of May. This is from the Department of Workforce Services, and that reflects 1,420 new jobs since the start of the year. Our unemployment data, we're at 2.9% at the end of May, which
Wow.
we were only one of 3 cities in the state that were under 3%. And you'll see May of 2020, we were at 6.1%, so we're rebounding nicely. Sales tax receipts, as y'all may very well know, the July receipts were over 1.6 million, which was an 18.6% increase over July of 2020, and we've shown a increase in 22 of the past 23 months, month over month, for the city. Also, we met recently with a leadership team from Opportunity Arkansas, and that's a group that's been formed to help promote opportunity zones across the state. Of course, Springdale, we have 4 census tracts that are designated as opportunity zones. So we're working with them for ways to try to drive investment in those areas. Some of the new and ongoing construction, the Center for Children's Health and Wellness near the Arkansas Children's Hospital has been open. Arkansas Children's Hospital is going to, they're going to occupy the top floor of that building. And then the big announcement we had recently from UAMS on the Orthopedic and Sports Medicine Center that hopefully will be operational in 2023, which will be also off Jean George Boulevard near in that area near the ballpark and Children's Hospital. And as far as our care corridor, we have as many as 12 medical-related facilities from Don Tyson Parkway up to Elm Springs Road. So the development along our medical facilities is really been amazing the last couple of years. Several other projects still ongoing across the city, and I'll let you read those for yourselves. But if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them. So, Don?
Any questions?
All right. Thank you very
Scott.
much.
Thank you. All right. Item 6, Council, you've had an opportunity to look over the minutes. If there are no changes or additions, I'd entertain a motion to approve them as presented. We have a motion and a second. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Thank you. Item 7, procedural motions. What's your pleasure, council?
Move for A and B.
Second.
Motion is second. Roll call, please.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson. Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right. Let me get there on my iPad here. Item 8 is a resolution, I'll go ahead and read it, a resolution making appointments and reappointments to the Public Vehicle Commission of the City of Springdale, Arkansas.
Move the resolution pass.
Second. That will be Amelia Williams and reappointed, and Mark Fugerus and Kevin Flores appointed to the commission. Did we get a second? I'm sorry. Yes, okay. Roll call, please.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugerus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes. Carries 8-0.
Thank you. Item 9, Finance Committee by Chairman Jeff Watson.
I was absent for that meeting. I'm not sure.
I think
Did you
Amelia
do it,
took
Amelia?
that.
I took it, yeah, I can take it.
Okay.
Finance Committee met last week, and there was an ordinance authorizing a stewardship fee payment to the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust in connection with the grant of conservation easement on property owned by the City of Springdale to waive competitive bidding and declaring an emergency. It was forwarded from committee with a recommendation for approval.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? For those watching, this is the 40-plus acres in J.B. Hunt Park that the city purchased several years ago for, along with Rabbit Foot Lodge. And it was a requirement of the purchase that we acquire a conservation easement for the property. And we've got that worked out with the Northwest Arkansas Land Trust, and this is
One-time fee.
a one-time fee, yes, that has been motioned and seconded tonight. So before we vote, any other questions or comments? Okay, Denise?
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugerus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am. Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Harriman.
Yes.
Fugerus.
Yes, ma'am.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton. Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
On 9B, Finance Committee met, there's a resolution authorizing the city attorney to settle a condemnation lawsuit wherein Gary Callwood and Doris Callwood are defendants, forwarded from committee with recommendation for approval.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Motion is second. Any further comments or questions? Okay, Denise?
Fugerus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
Thank you. Item 10, Police and Fire Committee, Chairman Brian Powell. Brian?
Thank you, Mayor. We met last Monday. We have one resolution to bring to council. It was forwarded the recommendation of approval. The title of the resolution is a resolution authorizing payment of an invoice. This concerns our Motorola AWIMS system for our police and fire departments. We heard from our police and fire, and they gave great raving reports on our system. It's working well with other cities and counties, and so bringing this forward for approval.
Move the resolution pass.
Motion and second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugerus.
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, thank you. Item 11, Planning Commission Report and Recommendations by Patsy Christie, Director of Planning and Community Development. Patsy?
The first item on the agenda is a request to rezone 3.02 acres located at 570 West County Line Road. This was actually heard by the Planning Commission back in April. There was some problems with getting the property split and the legal description properly created. We're moving this forward now with a recommendation for approval. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from medium-density multifamily residential district MF12 to general commercial district C2 and declaring an emergency.
I move the ordinance be adopted.
Patsy, real quick, is it A1 beside it, east and west? Is that by the same owner? Do you know?
I think it was originally. I think this piece is being split out of the middle. They haven't requested to rezone the other pieces. It was already rezoned to MF12 to start with, and now we're going back from MF12 to AC2.
There are commercial buildings all on the other side of the road.
Yeah, and to the north of it, there's commercial buildings around it. I think if you really look at it, the MF12 was probably the misplaced zoning district there rather than the commercial that they're asking for now.
I'll second it.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes. Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
And as the usual case, the emergency clause has been added because there's pending actions on these pieces of property. The next item is an ordinance to correct a Scrivener's error. It seems like we've had a lot of those lately. So we have instituted a new policy. All the legal descriptions, as soon as they come in, are being sent to the GIS department for them to map them out and check them for discrepancies before we get this far along, so we don't have to come back and correct it. But this one had a call that put a little bitty piece of property up in that parking lot to the north in this, which was not supposed to be included. So this is the correct legal description for it now. Okay? The title of this ordinance reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 5578, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, the plat pertaining thereto, to correct a Scrivener's error by rezoning certain lands from Light Industrial District I-1 to General Industrial District I-2 and declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions?
Yeah, I just need some clarity, Patsy. So the legal description was off on this,
Yes.
but how are we going from I-1 to I-2?
That's what we approved before. We went from I-1 to I-2 when we adopted the resolution to rezone it. It's just after the ordinance went to GIS to put it on the map, there was a mistake in the legal description and didn't close like it was supposed to. So all we're doing now is correcting that legal description that rezoned the property from I-1 to I-2.
So it should have came as I-2 if the legal description was correct. Okay.
Right.
Okay, good.
And as I said, I hope we have a procedure that's going to keep this from happening. I make no guarantees. Legal descriptions are hard to work with. We're setting up now where the engineer or the surveyor has to send it to us in a Word format, and we just cut and paste it. So if it's off, it's theirs, not ours.
So is there a job description for a Scrivener? Because if there is, I wouldn't want, because the only time you ever hear one is when it's an error.
Right,
So,
right.
okay.
That's exactly correct. So we don't want that job.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further questions or comments? Okay, Denise.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes. Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is to rezone a .9 acre tract located at 1600 Butterfield Coach Road. If y'all may know, this is the old Fishback School that the school district owned the property. They've recently sold. Looking at the zoning map that has been around for a while, it looks like the corner of this property was included with that subdivision where it really didn't belong. And so another one of those where the legal description was off. So basically, you're going to see, this is a request to rezone the property from A1 to P1, and that puts all that piece of property in that location, and we get rid of that SF2 that's on there because it shouldn't be on there anyway. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval of the rezoning. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from Agricultural District A1 to Institutional District P1 and declaring an emergency.
And what is institutional district?
Churches, schools, government buildings, those kind of things.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
We have a motion? Did you second?
Motion, second.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, any other questions? This is the old Fishback School, right?
Is a part of that property in the subdivision?
Technically, it never has been. And I don't know when the zoning map was done, why that corner was included in it. Clayton went back and checked all the legals on it, and the school district had a clear title to it, so I think the map was just off. And that's been that way for probably since the...
Since it was incorporated into the Springdale School District.
Yeah, so that's been 20 plus years. Well, 25 I've been here. It's been longer than that, so, yeah.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Anyone? Okay.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
This emergency clause.
Move the emergency clause be adopted. Sorry about that.
Second.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is a request to rezone 12.67 acres located at 5141 Watkins Avenue. It's this long, narrow tract that's adjacent to property that's already zoned C5. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from Neighborhood Commercial District 01 to Thoroughfare Commercial District C5 and declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other questions or comments?
Is this the one on Watkins and?
It's the old
Driving range.
golf course or driving
Yeah.
range, yeah, Puppy Creek.
Yeah.
Yeah, on this, it says C1 to C5 on this planning commission deal. So I was just making sure.
Okay.
It should be 01 to C5 because it's
It
been
is
01.
01 to C5 on our agenda.
Yeah, and the agenda is right.
But
It's
if you
yeah,
look at the
that's-
bottom of the map,
That's why I was making, that's why I
Oh,
was.
okay.
Wrong up there on the slide.
Okay. I know what it's supposed to say, so sometimes I don't read all the words if you want to know the truth.
But it is 01 to C5.
Yeah, it's 01 to C5. They came in and asked for a C1, and then they rezoned it back to an 01. They were going to put office buildings on there. That didn't happen. And so it's been this way for quite some time. It had an office building on it, too.
It had an old boat on it, too.
It had what?
An old boat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a nice boat out there if
Puppy
anybody wants
Creek.
it.
Well, I don't know about how nice it was.
Might float.
I think
all
the
right.
new owners will take care of that, probably.
Yeah, I think they will.
Yeah.
All right. Vote, please. Yeah.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
yes, ma'am.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson. Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is an amendment to the PUD ordinance that was adopted for Cadence Crossing. The only revision that's being made to the PUD right now is the detention pond is going away. They will be tying into the stormwater system that's to the subdivision to the south, and they will no longer need the detention pond. And they are moving some parking that was located on the west side of the property closer to the east side, so there would be some additional parking for residents in the area. That's the only two changes that are being made, but it has to come back to you to go through the process if they're making revisions. All of the covenants, all of the development plan, and everything stays in place except for those two changes I just talked about. Planning Commission recommends approval of this revision. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from planned unit development, PUD, to planned unit development, revised, PUD, and declaring an emergency. And we do this so we can track it all the way through, so we know what's the most current one that we have.
Could you repeat what you said about the detention pond?
The detention pond is going away. They won't have a separate detention pond on this piece of property. The stormwater that they need to take care of will be incorporated to the subdivision to the south. So we don't have to have two separate detention ponds. And then they move some additional parking down to that area. You know, there was some concern about those townhomes that faced out onto Gibbs Road where the visitors could park, and they've added some parking spaces in that area too.
It didn't change anything about the number of units or anything?
Nope, changed none of that. That's the only two things that changed.
What was the vote on this, in Planning Commission?
It was a unanimous vote.
No? Oh, at the Planning Commission, okay.
I didn't go back to when the rezoning went through,
Okay.
you know. Okay, just what Planning Commission did for this revision.
I move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Further comments or questions? Anyone in the room? Okay, Denise.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes. Move the merge clause be adopted.
Second.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman.
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next request is to rezone 1.5 acres located at the northwest corner of the intersection of I-49 and Elm Springs Road. It's the tract just to the east of the McDonald's there. The request is to rezone the property from Thoroughfare Commercial District C5 to General Commercial District C2. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from Thoroughfare Commercial District C5 to General Commercial District C2 and declaring an emergency. And they're asking to downgrade it because of the type of development they want to put on that piece of property. It will have no access to Elm Springs Road. It all has to be accessed through that road that's on the north side of the property that goes into the express unit for Walmart and the gas stations and to McDonald's. It won't have access to Elm Springs Road.
Move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Anyone? Okay, Denise?
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Move the merge clause be adopted.
Second.
The next item is a request to
Patsy.
rezone.
Patsy, wait.
Oh, sorry.
Lawson.
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman.
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Powell.
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Watson.
Yes.
Overton. Yes.
You didn't pronounce my name properly, so I was waiting.
She said over.
Overton.
Over.
Both the ordinance and emergency clause carry 8-0.
Okay, now I can move on. Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. The next request is for 3.2 acres located between, on the east side of Jean George Boulevard, about 400 feet south of Elm Springs Road. The request is to rezone this property from SF2 to MF12. At the Planning Commission meeting, there was opposition, a petition of 25 signatures of the adjacent property owners opposed to the rezoning. Their concerns were about flooding, the fact that these would be rental units and what it would do to their property values and traffic flow. The Planning Commission reviewed this request and by unanimous vote recommends approval of the rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from low medium density single-family residential district SF2 to medium density multifamily residential district MF12 and declaring an emergency.
Was there opposition this time at the Planning Commission for this rezoning?
Yes, for this one and the next one. As I said, there was a opposition in the form of a petition that was signed by 28 of the adjacent property owners. Their concerns was about the drainage and traffic and the value of their properties. This piece of property has a pretty significant drainage ditch across it, which will have to be taken into account as it is developed for multifamily. The property just to the east of it is the next rezoning application, and the Planning Commission really looked at these two together and recommends approval for both of those. But we're doing just the first one, which is this property on the west side.
And but single family?
It will be MF12.
Just but single family?
It abuts single family, yes. You'll remember there's commercial to the north of it on the corner there at Oak Grove Road and Elm Springs Road. That is, well, I'll go to the next slide, it shows you. That is commercial on that. Part of it is still A1, part of it is SF1, a large tract there, but that's what adjacent to it. That corner has been rezoned to C5 for several years now.
So this particular one's SF2. It's already single family, rezone.
Right.
But the other one is commercial.
Correct. They're asking for the other one to go to MF12 as well. Right. What this allows them to do is to create access for more than, to meet the fire code, they would have an access point on both streets. And it does have an access.
Can you repeat that?
That's south of where the roundabout is. They would have access on.
This will allow them to have access on both Oak Grove Road
and Jean George.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And they would have to meet multifamily design standards with the appropriate amount of open space for bedrooms.
And as I said earlier, the drainage and all that stuff will be addressed when as the plans move forward.
That's correct.
Okay.
All of that will be addressed with that, yes. And that's where we address all of those issues of drainage and street, you know, how it ties into the streets, the traffic congestion, those kind of things at that time.
And the MF12 is 12 units?
12 units per acre, yes. Mm-hmm. An MF12 will allow for townhomes, duplexes, 3 and 4 family residential units, and single family as permitted uses.
So, I mean, you talk about buffers a lot, buffering single-family development from commercial. It appears to me that that's basically what's happening.
That's what they're proposing, is to provide that buffer to the commercial development that's going along Elm Springs Road. And I think eventually we will see commercial between Jean George all the way to 49 that's going to be commercial right there along Elm Springs Road. I think that's what we're going to see.
That's true.
I can't see SF1 going any closer because with all that improvement, and like you were talking about commercial, I would see more of that being commercial in that area all the way up to Elm Springs.
And if the C2 remains C2, that puts commercial right in those backyards with no buffer.
Was there anybody here talking on this?
Don't know yet. We hadn't had I was going to wait and see if we had any action.
Your motion.
Move that the ordinance pass.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions? Is there anyone in the room here to speak to this one? Okay. Denise?
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman,
Yes.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Move the merge clause be adopted.
Second.
Harriman,
Yes. Sorry.
Fugierus,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
And as I said, the next rezoning request is the property that's just to the east of the one we just looked at. It is a request to rezone that 4.3 acres from C2 to MF12. Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning request as well. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from General Commercial District C2 to Medium Density Multifamily Residential District MF12 and declaring an emergency.
Ordinance passed. Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance. Anyone want, Randall, you got a question?
One question, that C5 right there, what's a C5?
A C5 zone has more intense commercial development than a C2. Things that have open display, have large boxes, commercial, those kind of things. Can't have automotive services. The only thing it can have is a car lot.
Drive-through.
Have a drive-through, right?
Yeah, and it can have a drive-through too,
So
yes.
pretty much this is going to go from commercial to multifamily to single family.
Correct.
Okay, and then there's an island right there, correct?
That's still in Elm Springs.
Yeah.
There's a little narrow strip down through there that connects this piece of property over to the east. That's still in Elm Springs, so we still have that.
Yeah.
That's in there too.
Okay.
It's a unique situation.
Yep. Is that still needed? Are
Well,
there still properties on Oak Grove that
Yes,
are in
there are
Elm
still
Springs?
properties
I thought
on-
they all came in.
All but
No.
one.
All but one.
Okay,
So that little strip has to stay that way until that
Create
one.
an island, that's where we left the street.
okay. All right, any other questions? Okay, Denise?
Bruce,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman,
Yes.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Al,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman,
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next request is to rezone 9.8 acres located at 4142 North 45th Street. The request is to rezone the property from large product retail sales district C6 to thoroughfare commercial district C5. Planning Commission recommends approval of this rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the City of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto, by rezoning certain lands from large product retail sales district C6 to thoroughfare commercial district C5 and declaring an emergency.
Move the ordinance pass.
Second.
Motion second to approve the ordinance. Any other comments or questions? Do we have anyone in the room to speak to this? All right, Denise?
Williams,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson, Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman,
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Al,
Yes. Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton,
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman,
Yes.
Fugierus.
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes.
Both the ordinance emergency clause carry 8-0.
The next item is a request to rezone 18.9 acres from low-density single-family SF2 to high-density single-family residential SF3. The application, when it came in, we went through the process to determine whether or not it was the same request that was made previously. This property was asked to be MF4 when it came in with the original request, so it is not the same request. The area to the east of it that is zoned I-1 is not being requested to be rezoned at all. The property that fronts onto Cheyenne Trail was zoned SF2 that time. They asked to rezone that from SF2 to SF3, and that was denied, and they're not asking to rezone that piece of property separately. The Planning Commission, there were several comments at the Planning Commission about the lot sizes, what I just talked about, how it was previously requested, how they couldn't ask for it again. And then there were some questions about the property to the south not being MF12. Well, it actually is zoned MF12. And the lot sizes in an MF12 zone is the same lot sizes for a single-family home as is what is being requested in this SF1. It is a 60-foot lot with 7,000 square feet per lot, but it can only be single-family. If it was MF12, it could be single-family lots at that same size. Planning Commission reviewed this request and by unanimous votes recommends approval of this rezoning request. The title of the ordinance reads, an ordinance amending ordinance number 3307, the same being the zoning ordinance of the city of Springdale, Arkansas, and the plat pertaining thereto by rezoning certain lands from low, medium density, single-family residential district SF2 to high-density, single-family residential district SF3, and declaring an emergency.
Could you explain real quick what SF3?
An SF3 zone is single-family homes only. Hold on just a second. Let me get to the right page here. I got too many pages here. An SF3 is designed to provide an appropriate district for existing developed areas occupied by small-scale, single-family dwellings and to provide more compact, single-family residential development to promote more efficient use of land and utilities and to promote the development of less expensive housing on smaller lots. The lot area, as I said, cannot be less than 7,000 square feet. It has to have 60 foot of frontage on a public street, and the density is 6 units per acre, as opposed to an SF2 zone, which is 4 units per acre, and it is a 70-foot frontage with 8,000 square feet. That's the only difference. It's still just single family in both. And as I said, the property to the south that is zoned MF12 allows for single-family homes as a permitted use at 12 units per acre at a same lot size of 60-foot frontage on a public street and 6,000 square feet. And there are a lot of single-family in that MF12. I'm assuming there are going to be comments, so I'm going to move to the sides.
What's the minimum square foot on SF2? I didn't hear. 8?
Yes.
And so the only reason they're bringing us forward is just density. There's nothing about the topography or the terrain that caused issues with an SF2.
Well,
It's
there are
just
some
more density.
terrain issues out there, but that was, you know, there's some drainage that goes down through there, you know. We have a preliminary plat, which is what the gentleman's letter was. It's for the preliminary plat. It's to include the area that was SF2, which will have 70-foot lots, and if this is rezoned, it'll have 60-foot lots. And that's what goes to the Planning Commission next Tuesday evening.
Y'all want to go ahead and take some comments, or I'm not hearing a motion yet, so. Let me, we want to hear from everybody, but please, let's try and be mindful of not repeating a lot and just try and keep your comments as brief as possible. Thank you. Go ahead. And please, your name and address again.
Okay. Karen McPherson, 1848 Cheyenne Trail. And I was Patsy's probably upset with me because I was the one that was arguing the fact that this is a double bite at the apple. The original lots were the one that we're talking about, the one to the east, and then the 2 to the west was the original request. So it had really 3 parcels, and the one that they've submitted now is half of a single parcel. So it's not, I'm not understanding why, first off, that wouldn't require a lot split, requesting 2 different zonings on 1 lot. Yeah, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The zoning ordinance allows for a developer to come in, identify what area they want to rezone, as long as we have a sound legal description that we can put it on the ground. Whether it's the entire tract of a parcel, whether it's a portion of it, there's nothing that keeps them from doing that. Okay.
And then the other discussion that Patsy and I had in that meeting was, so if they were denied the second time, could they come back and just resubmit for a 4th of that lot? And she said, absolutely. All they needed was a legal description change. And so I think that we have a problem in the ordinance itself that allows people to keep submitting until they get what they want, which probably can't be solved by this, and I don't want to get us off track, but I definitely would like for the city to look at that, because if that's the case, I mean, I told her, I said, so you're telling me that somebody can come back and request a 4th of a lot, an 1/8 of a lot, a 16th of a lot? And she's, yes. And so to me, people can't keep coming back to meetings and keep coming back. And the other part of that is that when you get smaller and smaller lots, you know, when they're only requesting a portion of the lot, less people are notified. And so when they came back with this, 90% of the people over on Cheyenne and all of our area weren't notified about this. And it's going to be the same thing if they come back and request MF on those other two. We won't even be notified when that happens because we're no longer adjacent. Yeah, and so when they keep coming back with just smaller and smaller portions, they can target who they want notified and who shows up at these meetings. And to me, that's just an issue, like I said, not with this, but needs to be addressed in how they handle that.
There's a little bit of confusion when you use the term lot and tract and parcel interchangeably. The parcels are created by the county for taxation. We go off of a legal description on the entire tract. That tract can, as long as it meets the minimum requirement for the zoning classification they're asking for, they can bring it down to whatever size they want in the way the ordinance is written today. But it's not a lot as such in that they're not splitting it, they're just rezoning a portion of it. And lot and tract and parcel all gets interchanged and it's confusing.
I think she was meaning tract
Yeah,
when
I
she
think
was
she
saying
was.
lot,
Yeah.
and we understood that
Yeah.
because basically she was asking if somebody could take a tract that could, if they get denied one time, cut it down to a smaller size. As long as they have the proper legal description, they can apply for rezoning. That gets turned down. They can drop it down as long as the tract's big enough. They can drop it down to another size.
Yeah.
And as long as it's a correct legal description, they can come forward and ask.
Yeah,
to
if you
get it
get into
rezoned.
something that has a lot and you want to rezone part of that lot, as long as each side can meet the minimum and it doesn't, you know, doesn't affect the subdivision that's in, we can get into that. But very rarely do we get down to lots. It's always tracts.
Right. But it has to be a different zoning request.
Well, yeah, but if, so, and that's what they're talking about. They had one zoning request and it got turned down, so instead of MF4, they come for our SF3.
Yeah. Which eliminates any multifamily going on in there. It's all single family now.
But it also cuts down on the size of the
Correct.
of the lots, which aren't comparable to the neighboring lots, neighborhoods.
Yeah.
Depends on how you look at that, because the
Yeah.
property to the south that's the zone MF12 is comparable lot
Is it
sizes.
developed?
There's a lot of houses and stuff, and there's some apartments.
By
in
the
that. There's kind of a
MF12,
mixture.
sorry, developed?
Yes. Yeah.
What?
Well, we put in
There's a
PUDs
lot
and
of
have
a
a lot
mixture
smaller
of
lots
stuff
than
in
this.
Do what?
We put in PUDs that
Oh,
are a lot smaller lots than
absolutely.
this.
Yeah.
Ernest just reminded me, and I want to make this point, not to derail anything, but, I mean, there's yeah, I guess just a function of this is if you're, whatever the size of your area is, it's going to determine how many adjacent property owners you have. But the city has an option on our website where you can sign up, anyone in the city can sign up for notifications, and that would probably help with that concern. I mean, obviously, we can't require a property owner to notify people a long way away from, just because they've taken their request to a smaller area. I mean, they still need to notify the people that are adjacent, the property owners that are adjacent to that. But if you'll go on it's a free option on with our storm warnings and all that on our website, and it will alert you to rezoning requests.
So I do have that.
Okay.
And it is true that you can get absolutely everything,
Mm-hmm.
but there should be some requirement that if you've gone in and asked for a change and it was denied, that you have to include those same people. You know, if you're asking a smaller tract, you should have to include everybody that, basically had the concerns the first time.
Yeah, I guess and I'm just looking at this from, I guess if it's further away from you, then are you as affected and need to be notified, I guess is the question.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely, because the street is still going to come out on Cheyenne Trail. when they submit this, I can't imagine that they're going to go out on Lockspar or come out the other way, because basically those roads, I mean, they're even smaller than Cheyenne. So, I mean, if that's the case,
Anything
then...
to add to that, Patsy? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Karen?
Well, with the existing SF2, they could have come in with a preliminary plat and developed the entire area as SF2 with lots, there are streets that come out the same way, and you would only get notified as a preliminary plat, not the rezoning issue.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is, and I understand that, and I think that that's okay, because you didn't change the density. You didn't actually go in and make it more dense. So, I mean, like I said, I'm not going to dwell on it, but a couple of other things that came up during all of that. I asked her about, you know, how do you coordinate with the schools? Because this is in a landlocked area, and the Elmdale School is packed. And you've got Central Junior High and Springdale High School, and we've added now MF just right across the way of this, right behind Schmitting is all the same area. And the response was, we don't deal with schools. So that's part of planning.
That's not totally, I didn't say we didn't deal with schools. We are not responsible for zoning what areas go to which school. That is done completely by the school district itself. They get a copy of all the development proposals and are allowed to make comments to if they think it would impact the school district. And we didn't get any comments from them on this one that it would have any impact on the school boundaries.
So have you ever gotten any?
Very few.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying, though. These groups should be meeting in a room
Get
together.
right into that mic, Karen, so they can hear you.
But these groups should be like in a room talking about, you know, if you've got a landlocked area that was planned for 60 years to be this, and now you're wanting to go to something more dense, what's the impact? There's also an easement on this lot that is a 20-foot easement of utilities, and that's above ground and underground easements. So where's the utility companies in all of this?
When we get to the preliminary plat, the plat itself is submitted to all the utility companies, the school district, the post office, everybody gets a chance to make comments. And that's when you get to the development the way it's laid out. They know there's easements across there. They know we're going to have to deal with that, but that is all taken into account when we get to the preliminary plat stage.
Just to quickly address I was on the school board for 10 years, and I've been through several rezonings, and Patsy's right. The school district does that, and they coordinate with, they look at where new housing is going in. I mean, the other side of what of your concern is, I mean, we can't eliminate infill.
You can't eliminate infill.
Right, and school districts deal with that all the time, and we've got schools that are bus only. We've got, because there aren't enough kids anymore that live around that school. So the schools will adjust.
But that's reactionary. That's not planning. I mean, that is after the fact, after you've already made the decision that you're going to increase the density, then you come back to those groups and you say, you've got to figure it out.
Yeah.
And something should change in that process that says you've got to talk to these people.
Well, I can tell you the school district is invited. We're going through a land use plan update. They were invited at the very beginning of that process to come in and talk to us about what are their plans, so they could tell them, we could tell them when we're seeing development. I mean, we plug them in every chance we can.
And the kid, just from the school district side, that has to be rezoned as kids are added, as those homes are occupied.
It's not rezoned.
You can't I'm talking about the school zoning.
Okay.
You can't rezone school attendance boundaries before the kids are there.
True, but if you're in a landlocked situation and you don't have some place for another school, then you should be telling that school, look, this is what we're about to do. You know, we're about to put in another 300, 400 units that there's no place, you know, so where's the planning to put the school first? and then, you know, go, okay, we've got the room. It's like a reverse logic. There's no planning, it's reactionary on everything that you're doing. So, I mean, again, I know that this is beside the point, but just to point out, we're already in Arkansas #1 in density. I mean, is that really what our city wants to be, is known for #1 in density? And I've sent you guys, when this first came up,
What are you citing there, #1 in density? Because that
So-
doesn't sound right.
when you go down to www.bigjustucities.com, demographics, it talks about every single city and what they're #1 for.
Oh, Springdale is #1 in the, I thought you,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I
Yes.
thought you said Arkansas is #1 in density. You said
No, I'm sorry. Springdale is #1 in Arkansas. They're also #1 for children, the number of children under the age of 18.
I believe that.
And so, you know, where's our planning? What are we trying to get to? We're building more and more and more of these small units, bringing in, you know, the lower income, still starting out in families, you know, that all that, and there's nothing for the growth of the people that are already here. I don't see huge plans for if you look on MLS, I was looking at that, and there's like 15 pages of 25 homes apiece of homes under 150,000. But then you get into the 250, 350 range, it shrinks. So, you know, just by saying that we want additional density on these lots, the house that I live in today was built in the 50s. I've added onto it twice. These homes can't be added onto. They're going to be lot to lot. So why not leave these lots bigger, even if you want to build a smaller house, and don't squeeze in density and allow people to grow into their home? I mean, I don't understand why we're in this mindset that we have to go multifamily, PUD, high density, when we're leaving out the middle group here. And this lot has, you know, it has drainage issues, it's in a flood zone, there's traffic on Cheyenne Trail that goes straight into Pump Station, where you're talking about adding the Veterans Memorial and all that. That's going to be more traffic. I've lived there for 60 years, and there's never any changes on those roads. There are no curbs, there are no sidewalks, and we're talking about another, you know, additional 2 houses per acre, which I know to you guys is like, wow, well, no big deal, but if you're living on those areas, I live directly across from where this is going to happen, and I already have a hard time getting out of the driveway and getting in. Kids ride their bikes down that road. It's a squirrely little S-curves that's dangerous. It's like, where's the planning in this for people's safety?
Okay. Thank you, Karen. Anybody else? Council?
Somebody else wants to speak?
That's fine.
I just had one other thing to say. Whenever the initial track was put before, it was requested to be rezoned not just MF4 but also SF3. So both of those were declined, and the notification that we got for the what she says preliminary plat meeting also says rezoning. It says rezoning from existing zoning SF2 I1 to proposed SF3. So the whole property is going to be up for rezoning again next week, the 3rd, whatever date it was. And so
That's preliminary plat, isn't it?
it's the notification says preliminary plat and rezoning.
Okay.
I'll be happy to show you a picture of it.
That's fine.
Okay. Yeah, because it specifically says rezoning. So then we go back to rezoning the same property in the same amount of time, and like the other lady talked about, is shrinking it down and shrinking it down. So I just wanted to bring up that it was proposed that this was zoned SF3 previously, in addition to MF4, and it was voted down.
Right.
So,
Okay.
that's all.
Thank you.
Is that correct, Patsy?
As I said, we took the legal description that was submitted with this rezoning request and vetted, and it is not the same piece of property that was asked to be SF3 before it was MF4. Now,
So
I don't know why the
there was
preliminary
a-
plat letter says SF3.
But there was a part of a larger piece that was dealt with previously. by
The entire piece that's SF2 now was requested to be SF3. The piece over there that fronts on Cheyenne Trail up to where that little narrow piece goes up through there, that was requested to be SF3 as well. It's not included in this request. The
Was the
property
part-
to the west of this,
The part that we're dealing with tonight, was it requested to be SF3?
no, we
It was
went through that and had the legal descriptions. We had the legal descriptions checked because the legal description for what is SF3, what is MF4 had to be in the original application. We went back and went through all those, and this is not the same legal description as, and we go by what the legal description is. This is just a map representation, but we actually use the legal description. As I said, we sent it to JIS to have it platted out. We asked the applicant to verify too, and they all verified. I gave it to Ernest. We all looked at it. It's not the same piece of property that was included in the SF3 before.
That answer your question, Jeff? All right. Well,
Now, the letter that went out now that says preliminary plat and rezoning, I'm not sure why it says rezoning on that. There is not a rezoning request on next Tuesday's agenda for that. The preliminary plat is on the agenda, but not the rezoning request. There's no other rezoning request that I'm aware of at this property right now.
So with the legal description, Patsy,
You want to verify what I just said? We checked the legal descriptions.
Jason Apple with ESI. That's correct. So the notification, it should have only been for the preliminary plat for next Tuesday night's meeting. There is not a rezoning request. And the legal description for tonight is the highlighted portion, which is, this is where.
Right, there you go.
So that piece is the piece that's being requested tonight. This piece right here was the request of SF3 previously, which is going to remain SF2. This piece previously was MF4, and now is requested to be SF3.
How did you get that to do that?
So in the original request, it actually had this piece and this piece in addition to this, and it was a request for a combination of SF3 and MF4. So it was all three of those pieces. And so what they've done is what Patsy's explaining. They changed the legal description and took out a section in the center right here, which means that when they come back and request these two, which they still own, to MF4, none of us will be notified. There won't be a single notification. This down here is Georgia's, and this over here is 71. So basically, they're going to get what they wanted in just chunks.
Go ahead.
So to that point, I think I think what we're seeing here is the spirit of versus the legal. And to your point, well, to her point, they've all that piece, they've asked to go MF4 and SF3. And what's happened is now they're just going to eventually bring it down in small pieces and eventually get it to SF3. The other piece of the thing is Patsy keeps saying it's MF12 to the south. That is the only piece that is MF12 to the south for quite a ways. So I think that's a bad point personally when you try to make a point that MF12, well, it's already there. Well, it is just a little piece of it, and it's butted up against this industrial piece, which I'm sure was why it was allowed originally. But all we're doing here is she's stating that that's the seed and reason why this should be allowed to downgrade in size. I think that's a poor example. So, and the other thing I was going to state is I'm hearing a lot of, well, it should have said, or it wasn't supposed to say. Well, it's preliminary plat and rezoning. Well, it's not supposed to say that. I don't know that. Nobody in here knows that. It's not supposed to say SF3. But if nobody shows up and questions that, what's to prevent the situation tonight or even next week? If that's wrong, there was mistakes in the letter I received the first time with what was on the agenda, with which I believe some gentleman said with versus what was voted on. I would ask humbly, please table this tonight and let's get all the facts together and understand it better. If we're not going to, if you're even considering approving it.
What's before the council tonight's very clear.
I understand.
It has nothing to do with what's before the Planning Commission next Tuesday.
Yes, sir, that's true, and I apologize for bringing those two together, but I feel like they are in some ways together in the way the process has gone to get this in front of you tonight.
But they're not, because we have no way of knowing what the property owner is going to request in the future.
I know you
You
don't
may
know
be right,
that.
but we don't have any way of knowing that.
Right.
We've got to deal with what's before us.
And there's no way to prevent this from continuing to chop this down into small pieces, and he can turn it to whatever he wants to turn it to. True?
Well, I don't know. I'll
I mean,
defer to what's-
legally, he can do that. I mean, that's been said, I
If they
think.
want to rezone from I-1, they have to go through the same process. They have to file a petition for rezoning. They have to notify adjacent property owners. If you sign up,
Please don't comment unless you're coming up to the microphone, because people watching can't hear you.
And if you sign up for the voluntary notification, you will receive notification of that, even if you're not an adjacent property owner, as the mayor said earlier.
Yep. I think that's a stretch personally to ask everyone to have to sign up for a voluntary process on things. I get it, that's a nice feature, a nice function that the city offers, but.
Well, what's the solution then? How far should we notify? How far should we require a property owner to notify adjacent property owners?
I think
or that are not adjacent.
I don't have an answer for that,
See,
but I think it's very interesting that the piece they've carved out of the middle was over the 300 feet, which is my understanding is the limitation. Okay. They were certainly far enough away from the part of the housing here that probably will make the most noise about this situation. And we keep leaning on the fact that this is MF12, when if I look at that, just this little portion that we can even see here, we know this is all industrial and commercial. This is mostly SF2. There's a little piece there, I believe, that's MF12 or something, that's all single-family houses. Why is that the justification? And there's been several points made around very many issues around drainage, around the green space, et cetera. So again, I feel like we don't have everything that's needed here. I realize their job is to bring it together and present to you, and they've done that. But then your job is to validate whether you think that's right or wrong. And so we're asking you to say, hey, we don't think it's right yet. That's really, I guess, what I'm asking is to say, I don't feel like it's right yet. I think most of the people don't believe it's right yet. Maybe it will get right. I certainly respect the fact that the Parsons family has every right to sell and make profit on that property. I live on a piece of it myself today. And I hope to one day sell it for profit. That's their they can do that, but I think we got to be very careful here, or we're just going to turn that all into a bunch of matchbox size postage stamp lots, and we're not ready for it. And that's what I'm asking you to basically consider.
Thank you.
For those of you who are new to the council, we used to have that everybody within 300 feet have to be notified. We pulled that back to only the adjacent property owners several years ago. They followed everything that they were required to follow to make the notifications, and they're correct. It's only the adjacent property owners that are notified.
So Patsy, the preliminary plat that is scheduled for a hearing next Tuesday night, is that for the larger piece?
It's for both what is now SF2 and what,
So
if
they're
you rezone it
planning
to
on
SF3.
their plan appears to be that they're going to put something in SF2 on the SF2 property.
Correct.
Right?
That will
So
meet the
that would be
minimum,
larger lots on
Right.
that property.
70 foot of frontage, 8,000 square feet
And
for
then
all
you,
of that.
so that's not going to change because
No.
they're asking to do this SF2. Now, apparently
Exactly.
they had asked for that to be SF3 and they got turned down. Is that right?
Correct.
So they agreed to go back and leave that portion
That
SF2
portion
and
was
develop
left
it just like
SF2.
that.
So that
Yes.
kind of satisfied all of these concerns, except for the part that's farther to the east, that they'd like to develop a little, and I'm not a big fan, as most of you know, of small lots. But I kind of see, at least they're leaving the part closer to Cheyenne Trail and the present residential community, SF2.
That's correct.
The part that's closer to the industrial land and to the trail, which, you know, we all ride by, would be the smaller lots.
That's correct. That's what they're proposing with this rezoning. You're exactly correct.
I move the ordinance be adopted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the ordinance. Any other questions or comments from the
But
council?
to this point, though, there is no other reason that they want to reduce this lot size to an SF3, except for they just want to reduce it down to an SF3. There's no other circumstance that
Well, I
drive them to
can't
that.
answer that. Is there some terrain issues?
And I'm not
There's-
sure that's our,
That's not something we get into. It's still
It's
single
not,
family.
but it is for us, council folks, when we look at areas and we see how areas are established and what goes into those areas too, we do have a concern with that
Well,
because.
but we don't have in our ordinance that sets that parameter that you look at that kind of, is the highest and best use of
you
this
don't.
piece of property single family? Does 2 additional lots per acre, is that significant enough for keeping it to be rezoned to SF3? That's the difference, is 2, and it's,
how many acres does this cover? Jason, do you know?
I got it right here,
It is 18.9.
Okay.
18.9,
Say it again?
18.9, 19 acres.
The total is 60.
Hmm?
The total is 60, but this portion is 18.
That's what I was asking about this portion. I was just trying to get in my head the difference, number, the
36.
density difference between SF2 and SF3 on this piece of property.
So how many additional lots? 2 per acre is the maximum they can get. I don't know if they got that maximum the way it's laid out or not. Quite honestly, we'll
Well,
go
no,
through
you
all
got
that.
roads in there and everything else,
Yeah.
so.
I don't know that they're actually increasing it
Right.
to 6 units per acre in this portion, but that's the most that they could put on it if they can make it work with the street layouts.
But we deal with that at a different time.
We deal with that with the preliminary plat. We have to make sure all the lots meet the minimum requirements and lot width and all of that, and that the drainage and the access is all properly taken care of.
We don't deal with that at all. Planning Commission does.
Right. Preliminary plats only go to Planning Commission for their approval. Then, once the preliminary plat is approved, they have to submit the engineering plans and specifications before they can actually go to work. And then it comes back when 80% of the street work is completed and 95% of the water and sewer is in place before they can get a final plat, before they can transfer ownership of any of the lots. It's a long process to get through. We do it all the time.
Other questions or comments? Anybody else in the room? Want to give everybody a chance.
I'm Cheryl Thomas, and I live at 1709 Ridgeview.
Cheryl, pull that down, really speak into it. Thank you.
I have seen a copy of the, I guess it was the preliminary map, and that I guess was provided to you for next week's. And from looking at the lot sizes, the majority of them, even over on that other division, are like 0.18 of an acre. So that tells me that's not a quarter of an acre. So I don't see, and from what I'm understanding, I don't see how that is 4 lots per acre. I don't understand the math involved in that, when though you've got those tiny little acres and you're going to have all those cars.
They're still going to have a minimum lot width that, yeah, and a lot size. So
They have a minimum lot size, a minimum frontage on a public street, and a minimum lot size for each lot that is in that subdivision, and we review all those to make sure that they meet those
I
requirements.
think, Cheryl, I don't want to get out over my skis on this, which I can easily do, but I think that the units per acre, you're not necessarily going to have, if you get 6 units per acre, each lot's not necessarily going to be a 1/6 of an acre, because you've got roads in that to figure into that. You may have you're going to have some drainage probably.
Detention, utility easements, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, utility easements, all that. So that's why the lot sizes don't necessarily add up.
But they have to be no less than 8,000 square feet and 6,000, because that's what the ordinance requires. And we go through all those to make sure all that fits the minimum.
Okay. All right. Roll call.
Overton,
No.
Austin,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores,
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman?
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus?
No.
Powell?
No.
Watson?
Yes.
Carries 5-3. There is an emergency clause.
Move the emergency clause be adopted.
Second.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Flores?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Fugierus?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Yes. Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes. Emergency clause carries 8-0.
All right. Okay, thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a request for a waiver of sidewalks in connection with a single-family dwelling being built at 308 East Lakeview Drive. Planning Commission reviewed this request and recommends payment in lieu of for that sidewalk. The title of the resolution reads, "A resolution approving a waiver of street improvements, drainage, curbs, gutter, and sidewalks as set forth in ordinance number 3725 to J. Todd Setzer and Laura Setzer in connection with 308 East Lakeview Drive, a single-family dwelling."
I move resolution forward with option 1.
Option 3.
Are you doing which? Planning Commission's recommendation was option 3.
Stand.
Okay, and you said option 1?
I'll second that.
Got a motion and a second to approve the resolution with option 1. Any other comments or questions? Yes, Kevin.
So we don't have any sidewalks on any of these homes right here at the moment. We have any future plans on expanding or doing anything with Lakeview Drive that we know of?
I am not aware of anything at this point. No.
Kevin, we've looked at ways to do it on we've had some requests on the south side of the street. The topography, especially as you get closer toward 71B, is just, it's going to be very costly and very difficult. And I'm not even sure we would get all the neighbors to cooperate. So the short answer is no, that we don't have any plans on that. Any other questions? Comments?
Option 1, right?
Yes. Okay.
Flores?
Yes, ma'am.
Harriman?
Yes, ma'am.
Fugierus?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Carries 8-0.
The next item is a request for a waiver of street improvements, curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and drainage in connection with a subdivision that's being put in by Will Peters They're subdividing the parcel at 21. Well, I give you the parcel number. I can show you on this drawing. It is kind of an odd piece of property. Planning Commission recommends payment in lieu of improvements to the west side of Robbins Road in connection with this subdivision. And I know they have some comments they want to make.
I move resolution forward with option 1 again.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the resolution, the
That's
waiver
to grant
with
you the
option
waiver.
1.
That's what the option he's talking about. I was just telling him
Oh, okay.
that what your motion is to grant them the waiver and they don't have to do any street improvements or paver.
Correct.
Or payment in lieu of. Okay, so. But you're still welcome to say something if you want to.
Any questions or comments? We have a motion and a second, right? Anyone?
So, just to be clear, this is just waiving the sidewalks on Robbins Road?
No, that's street improvements because they're subdividing the property and the street does not meet Master Street Plan standards. They would be required to do their half of the street, the full width of the property, curb, gutter, sidewalks, and drainage. And they're asking, and Mike's motion is to waive all that, and they don't have to do any of that.
Reason I said that, Randall, is I had an opportunity to go out to this property, and I appreciate what planning's doing, and everybody wants a crystal ball, but this is so far out there. This is years down the road. It's fallen under, Patsy, if I'm correct, a subdivision, which part of it was a street going through. That was the original property owner years and years ago. This is basically wanting to build a couple of nice houses, and it is, again, I appreciate planning. It's a stretch for this to ever be a subdivision.
Well, I understand that too, but, you know, then you have a Lakeview subdivision that used to be on the outskirts and we don't have any sidewalks on it, and now we wish we did, you know. So you can look at it both ways.
Yeah, it won't be anytime soon. This is so far out there. It's just going, I mean, the two houses, from where I see the lay of the land, it isn't even going to compare to the two houses that are there on this same property. It's just going to be it's really just a couple of nice houses. But I get why it falls, how it falls because of the split.
And the Planning Commission can't make the decision because basically if you waive that requirement, that means the taxpayers of the city have to pay for that sometime in the future whenever the road is. They will dedicate the right-of-way, so if something happened, we wouldn't have to go back and acquire the right-of-way. So we do get that, which is one step in favor as far as that's concerned.
Honestly, just my opinion, a street like this that's out like that, if it ever develops enough, then we'll probably be looking at a street project out there. You know, I don't know.
What's the thing about subdivision? I'm not sure I followed that. Why is this being called a subdivision?
Because of the number of splits, is that right, Patsy?
The property's already been split once, twice, right? And you want to split it 2 more times? By definition, subdivision really is 2 lots. We always let the first subdivision, the first lot split go in without having to do anything when you get to the third one. It's technically a subdivision, and that's where you come in and waive or ask for waiver of subdivision requirements so that you don't have to do that. You got to set a limit somewhere, or we would have. And
So if it wasn't a subdivision, would they be asking for the same?
If they weren't splitting the property, no, they wouldn't have to ask for it.
There would not be any of this?
No, because they're asking to split it, and it's already been split at least once. We have at least 3, and actually we have 4 because I think one lot was split out while it was still in the county. So technically, we'll have 4 houses out there when they get finished, and that's technically a subdivision.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, Denise?
Harriman,
No.
Bruce,
Yes.
Al,
Yes.
Wing,
Yes.
Watson,
Yes.
Overton.
Yes.
Lawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Flores.
Yes, ma'am.
Here's 7-1.
All right, thank you. Item 12, Wyman's on his way. We have another big invoice.
This time be adjourned.
Almost.
We've been doing some major moving around from offices to move into the new building, and they've been doing a lot of work, so we've got a bill for over $1 million.
Okay.
I move the resolution pass.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other questions or comments?
Yes.
Al?
Yes.
Williams? Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Lawson?
Yes, ma'am.
Flores?
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman?
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
Okay, and I apologize for the late addition this morning of this resolution, but we just found out, Wyman got a call yesterday afternoon about this, and it's great news. Wyman, and I'll let you read the resolution, but you can tell them what it is. Hopefully they've had an opportunity to look at the resolution.
It's a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute all the documents related to a grant. FAA had some money left over from other grants, and we were the #1 candidate to use it if they had it. And they just found out yesterday that they had enough for the $3 million project. So they moved it up a year for us. It benefit us in one way that grants this year are 100% grants. Grants next year would be 95%. So we're getting 100% from FAA to extend the east side taxiway.
Move the resolution be adopted.
Second.
Does this have anything to do with that hangar that's going to be up there? This is totally separate?
It's separate, and
Freebies.
that's a separate grant, right, that would be in connection with that hangar, which is the apron and the parking. That's a separate grant that we talked about.
Correct. It's from the Arkansas Department of Aeronautics.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, this is something we've been looking at for years, and really a pleasant surprise yesterday. All right, Denise?
Al?
Yes.
Williams? Yes. Watson?
Yes.
Overton?
Yes.
Lawson? Flores?
Yes, ma'am.
Perryman?
Yes.
Fugierus?
Yes.
Carries 8-0.
All right, any comments from council members?
Now, Mayor, this is our swan song in this hallowed hall, so our next meeting will be in Harper Hall.
And the sound will be so much better. We won't have to strain so much to hear one another. So, and I hope it'll be better for our residents too.
Where are we meeting Tuesday night?
Tuesday night.
Monday night.
Wait,
I mean Monday.
next Monday night.
Monday.
We should be in the tiered training in the new building.
Adjacent to Harper's throne room.
Yeah.
I think that's where we're
Be the
going.
second floor of the new police department. We'll let you know if there's a change.
Okay.
But hopefully sorry, Tommy. Maybe, are you asking about access? There are elevators, yeah. Yeah, there are elevators, it'll be great access. Okay? Thank you, thank you for being here, Tommy. All right. Anything from the city attorney?
No, sir.
I have nothing.
So moved.
We're adjourned, thank you.